Hello everybody! Today I am very excited. Why? Because we just picked up an engine from the junkyard that is going to be going into the Ford. And it is not going to be going into the Ford in stock form. It is going to be going into the Ford with a turbo, performance cam, headwork, forged pistons. You know, if everything goes right, hopefully this thing's going to be fast. Hopefully this thing's not going to blow up. So here we are, fresh from the junkyard. We have the engine. Most likely, if you guys buy an engine, this is how you're going to receive it. You got your ECU up top, all of your, pretty much all the wiring crap, and technically this thing should be able to run as soon as we hook it up to fuel. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to test that as much as I want to, because I would have to set it up on a stand, and I would have to give it a fuel, get power to it, get the starter hooked up. We're going to we're going to do a complete teardown of this. We're going to just take everything completely apart, strip it down to the block, pistons, everything. Look at every single part, figure out what we can do to add performance, and put it all back together with, of course, our performance parts. We're going to try to do all of that within a $2,000 budget. A turbo, performance cam, a $2,000 budget. Headwork, forged pistons.
A $2,000 budget.
This engine here was $350 if I haven't already mentioned it. I mean, it looks complete. The junkyard I purchased this from says that everything was running. The fuel pump just went out, and that is why the man got rid of the truck. It was a 95. The truck we're going to be swapping it into is a 98. So hopefully with the 95 we'll have a little bit better electrical system. As you can see, the insulation on these wires looks pretty good. On my truck, you can grab the insulation on one of the wires and just pull, and it will start to pretty much just disintegrate because the wiring's just kind of old and has started to rot. So we're going to take apart an entire engine, and maybe we'll get most of this done tonight. One can only hope. If you're going to be doing this, you're going to need a few things. An engine, of course. A few tools that you can rent at your local auto parts store. This is fan clutch wrench set. This is a fan clutch holding tool, and this should be able to pull our harmonic balancer. You're also going to want to have just a set of basic hand tools, and we also have impact sockets because we're going to be trying to use the impact gun as much as we can just to make this quick, just to kind of knock this thing apart as fast as we can. First thing we're going to do is try to very gently and very neatly remove all of the wiring. Now, it's going to be very hard to do it neatly. It is going to be a mess, but we're going to try to get it all apart without breaking anything. So, ECU, this looks like a fuse box. Just going to figure out what's holding these up, and we're going to try to take the whole harness off. What's unfortunate is I have no idea what some of this stuff goes to. I kind of have some of an idea, but I've never really completely stripped down my truck, so I don't exactly have a way of knowing what all of these sensors and stuff go to. Looks like, I mean, obviously the ECU, there are a few light bulbs attached to here, so definitely believe those are the headlights and turn signals. So that's most of the harness right there, actually. Not sure if I've mentioned it, but I've never done a complete teardown of an engine, so as much as I act like I know what I'm doing, I probably don't. You want to disconnect every single connector you see, carefully remove the entire rat's nest, and you'll be left with this. This is your wiring harness. It connects your ECU to everything else on your engine. This is our idle air control valve. This is our throttle position sensor. EGR valve. We're just going to go ahead and remove the EGR because we are going to custom fabricate EGR block off plate. So
This mess of hoses, as well as a pump driven by the engine's belt, is for the air injection system, which injects air into the catalytic converter. This was required on older catalytic converters. However, new catalytic converters, from my understanding, do not need this. Therefore, we are going to remove this from the engine completely. Even with the fan clutch removal tools, this fan does not want to come off. I'm just going to loosen the water pump bolts and remove the entire assembly.
Easier if we took off our thermostat housing. Oh, that's nasty. There goes your thermostat. I mean, we're gonna get the block hot tanked and everything at the machine shop, so hopefully that'll clean out most of the crap in the cylinder head. If I'm not mistaken, I think I can, unless I'm mistaken, I believe I can get to these water pump bolts a lot easier if we take off the alternator bracket. So we're going to do just that. First you got to take out the alternator. I believe it's 2 1/2-inch, these look like 1/2-inch bolts. And the alternator should just come off because we've disconnected it. Very helpful. There we go. Next we need to take off the pulley on our smog pump. This just pumps air through a tube back here into the catalytic converter. Sure do make it look a lot easier on TV, don't they?
Once the alternator and smog pump are removed, you can take out some 1/2-inch and 5/16 bolts, and your alternator bracket can be removed. Now I'm just going to thread those bolts back into the block so that I know where they went.
Nasty. I tried to wrangle our water pump off. Not sure if I can say I condone this, but we're going to give it a shot. We'll give it a shot. Oh, we're halfway there.
The upper intake manifold is held on by deep socket 1/2-inch bolts.
Under here, attached to the top of our intake, is a 9/16 bolt. Our fuel rail bolts are 7/16, so we'll go ahead and pull our fuel rail off.
Right now I'd just like to go ahead and apologize for the bad camera work and bad angles. In the future I'm going to have a friend help me hold the camera and film. Gently but firmly pull on the fuel rail to pop the injectors out of their holes.
A little bit of wiggling, this thing ought to come out. .7/16 bolts hold on our valve cover. I don't know if you can see that. Let me get my light real quick. You can tell this thing hasn't run in a long time. So you can see it's pretty dry. There's no oil.
From what I can tell, this is pretty normal for an engine that hasn't run in a long time. I have no idea how long it was sitting in that guy's field when the fuel pump died, and I have no idea how long it's been in the junkyard.
Best way to get this bolt off is just to grab it by hand and just break it free.
We will use our balancer puller tool, which is free to rent at any auto parts store. The way it works is you just go in there, you tell them whatever you need to rent. They have all kinds of stuff, and you basically pay for it, take it home, use it, and then whenever you bring it back, you get the full amount that you paid for it refunded.
go ahead and unplug our AC compressor.
The bracket holding the power steering pump and air conditioning compressor can be removed with the compressor and pump still attached. Just a couple of 9/16 and 1/2 inch bolts and it comes right off.
Now with our timing cover removed, you can see we have our cam gear and our crankshaft gear. If I'm not mistaken, that is made out of plastic. We're going to try to get it on the stand so that I can start taking the cylinder head apart. Now, we got to take off our flywheel and our pressure plate. Pressure plate bolts are 9/16.
Now we will remove our flywheel, which is held on by 3/4 inch bolts. Do be careful because these things can be pretty heavy, especially on trucks. It only surprises me how heavy these things end up being, and I end up dropping them on my foot, as shown. Each rocker is held on by one bolt. Just loosen that bolt and the rockers come right off. On this engine, there's 2 valves per cylinder, so there's 12 rockers.
Now we'll take our push rods out. And we're not going to worry about order on these because we're going to be getting new rockers, push rods.
A $2,000 budget.
A lot of people say that you got to keep your valves and your push rods linked, kept to each other, kept to the position because everything wears to itself. But since we're getting new push rods, I'm not concerned about that. Famous last words, it'll be fine. So now we are almost ready to pull the cylinder head. Gonna pop spark plug wires out. Alright, now we can take off our upper intake manifold and our lower exhaust. This is a 9/16 inch bolt. Just use the impact to get them out because it makes it a lot easier. Our intake, which we could not get this EGR valve off, so the intake and the exhaust are going to stay with each other for now until we can until I figure that out. So just going to pull motor mounts. As you can see, pretty much gone.
After we remove this 1/2 inch distributor hold down bolt, we can then disconnect and remove the distributor from the block. The dipstick tube is just threaded into the block, break it loose with a wrench, and then unscrew it all the way out. We are now removing our ignition coil and putting the bolts back in so we can keep track of them later, and then we are going to disconnect this wiring.
We'll finish this by taking off our push rod cover. As you can see, there's our lifters. These should pop out, but they're probably stuck in there pretty good. So, the reason, of course, these are called push rod. This is called a push rod cover. Is because you got your push rod that goes down into the cylinder, seats on the lifter. And we'll take out our spark plugs with a spark plug socket. They don't look horrible. Obviously, we're not going to be reusing them. Work on getting our cylinder head bolts off. Gonna need a breaker bar for this. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I think I counted some twice, but whatever. You can see them. So, gonna start loosening these. Good way to crack the cylinder head loose from the block is to take the handle of your breaker bar, put it in one of the ports here, then just wiggle on it a little bit. Now we'll take off our cylinder head. These things are kind of heavy, so you do want to be prepared to lift them. Everything appears to be moving pretty smoothly. There is rust in some of the cylinders. So you can see there is rust on the side of some of the cylinders.
Here I am being an idiot and trying to remove the lifters by prying on them with a screwdriver. I actually did successfully remove all of the lifters with this method, but I definitely wouldn't recommend it as you can damage stuff. As you can see there comes one right now. You can actually damage stuff doing this. It's just not good for the lifter bores in the block. You go to your local auto parts store, you can rent a lifter removal tool. Definitely do that and do not do this this method. You can probably damage stuff.
So far everything looks like it's in pretty good condition. Of course, what would I know?
Now you can see I'm being a total idiot and trying to get vice grips on this one because it's really stuck in there and won't come out. Go to the auto parts store or somewhere, just get a lift removal tool. Do not do this. This is stupid. I don't know why I didn't just go. Probably because this was late and the parts stores were closed and I'm like, I'm getting this done tonight. But yeah, don't, especially not with vice grips. Come on, go get a lift removal tool. Okay, let's just go to AutoZone. I just Googled lifter removal tool. This is what we come up with at AutoZone. $15. I don't know if that's at the store. Okay, pick them in store, not available. So it looks like you have to get it shipped to you, but still, $15. I'm sure you can find one at Napa or O'Reilly's or something. They probably have one for rent. Used for removing stubborn valve lifters from the engine block. Yep, that's definitely helping. It even has a built-in slide hammer for easy use. $15. $15. Don't mess up your engine block.
What made these so hard was that piece of rust there. Now, in order to get our cam out, there are 2 bolts behind there that we're going to have to line up. So, we'll take our breaker bar. You can't see the bolts now, but you will as soon as they come into view. And there we go. Kind of wiggle and pull on this, and the cam should slide out. Make sure, of course, all your lifters are out, otherwise that will keep your cam from wanting to come out. Whoa. Went ahead and dropped the oil pan off camera. Alright, that is 100 times better, because now we can reach in this part of the block. We can feel our cam right there. We can guide it over and out. Here's our camshaft, ready to have a lamp put on top of it and be made into a lamp. Now we'll go inside, maybe have a snack, just clean up just a little bit, and wait for most of the oil to drip down into that pan, so that when we go to flip this block over to take out our pistons and stuff, you don't make a huge mess. As you can see, the bottom of this oil pan is disgusting, all kinds of just sludge and gross, so no telling how long this oil's been in here. Now we're going to remove the oil pump. In order to do that, 2 1/2-inch bolts up here, 9/16 down here. we will take our crankshaft bearing caps off. These are 3/4 inch bolts. Put our brake bar on there. And these are numbered. So this is 4, 3. They have arrows on them that point to the towards the front of the engine. So you can see, looks pretty smooth. You can run your fingernail across it, and you can't really, doesn't catch on anything. Up here, well, up here it seems pretty scored. We're putting in new bearings, but this is so we can kind of determine the condition of our crankshaft. Really don't feel anything there. Feels pretty smooth.
The copper material is the backing of the bearing, meaning this bearing has wear. It does not have any deep scratches, however, so the crank journal could just be polished by your machinist. Of course, the old bearings are going to be replaced.
As you can see, that line down there, scoring on there. Rear main seal literally slides right off. Right, so now we're going to take out the piston. We're going to take out this one. So we're going to rotate the block until this is as far down in the cylinder that it can be. That is called top dead center. And we will crack the bolts loose. These are the 2 bolts we're referring to. You might not be able to see them too well on here since it is at bottom dead center. Just tap on that. You're tapping here. We undid the bolts a little bit, and then we're going to tap to disconnect. You just heard it pop. Now we will undo these 2 bolts. Take off our bearing cap. Very gently tap the. Put our hand on this side of the block to hold the piston as we gently tap. Nice. And there we go. The piston's out. Try not to just drop it and let it hit the floor. To keep these together, and these are marked. So this says number 5. This says number 5 right here. And on our bearing cap, at least on this engine, that may not apply to all engines, there is a number 5. The number 5 is only on one side on both. So you line them both up so you know which way this goes, so you don't put this on backwards. Put our bolts on to keep track of our bolts, and only 4 more to go. There, that's the proper way to do it, because you don't want to just be throwing these things around. Let's look at our bearing. Now we will go ahead and remove our crank. As you can see, there's our bearings. They don't seem too bad. Of course, we're going to replace them. Now, in order to get our valves out, these retainers have been sitting in the keepers for a long time, and they tend to get stuck. So what I did, went out to Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever, bought an 8-inch C-clamp. So with a C-clamp, just take a socket, put it on the end there. Protect, of course, the cylinder head with a piece of like folded up cardboard or something like that. And then just tighten this, and then you will hear that pop out. Now we'll take our tool that we rented from the auto parts store, get that tightened down, can push our valve out and fish out our keeper. We can just take this off and set it aside. And push our valve through. Then we'll grab some pliers, take out our valve seals,